share with us a bit more about our topic.
Thanks, Daniel. Morning, everyone. I always like seeing how the service leader introduces the service and the theme, because I know what I'm going to be preaching on, and Daniel has heard it because he heard it at 8 o'clock. I mean, when he started with, I tend to overcomplicate things, I thought, oh dear, is this going to be a comment on, have I overcomplicated this topic? But then he went on to chainsaws, and I thought, where's he going with this? How identity and chainsaws. And I started to think, how is the chainsaw going to lead into what I want to say about finding our identity? I thought, is he saying our purpose is to cut things down? I thought, that can't be right. That's not it. I said, maybe he's something about we can't be relied on to work all the time. Okay, there's a bit, that's resonating a little bit. No, it doesn't seem quite right. Maybe he's saying our identity is messy. Well, yes, that's starting to make a bit more sense. I'm not sure that that's actually what was intended, but I'm going to take your chainsaw analogy and I'm going to flag that this is what I want to do this morning. I want to take a chainsaw to some of the ways we look for our identity. I want to attack it a little bit. I'm going to try not to make too much of a mess and spill oil or anything anywhere. And I want to say that some of this may be stuff that you actually know, but it doesn't always actually run properly in you. So if nothing else, this might be a chance to just press the button a few more times and get it really running. So that's the chainsaw. So let's go. Let's rev the chainsaw up and start. But to start with, I want to introduce you to three people, three imaginary young people. Firstly, I want you to meet Leanne. Leanne grew up in a close-knit coastal village where family gatherings are as regular as the tides. She hopes to become a teacher, not only because she loves learning, but because it's a respected way to give back to her community. Leanne dreams of raising her own family just down the road from where she grew up. But sometimes she wonders what it would be like to chase her own dreams a little further from home, maybe even abroad. The thought both excites and unsettles her. And the tension she carries is this. She feels deeply loyal to the people who shaped her, and yet she wonders if there's more to who she is than what others expect her to be. Maybe there's some things about Leanne that you resonate with. Let me introduce you next to Max. Max comes from a world that cheers the bold, the brave, and the wildly original. He hopes to build a career that's entirely his own. Maybe launch a startup, travel while working remotely, maybe write something that people actually read. Max imagines a life of freedom and self-expression, unencumbered by anyone else's plans. But sometimes he lies awake wondering, if things fall apart, will anyone be there? He longs for freedom, but occasionally envies the security he sees in people who have strong roots and stronger safety nets. Maybe you recognise something in Max. Lastly, I want you to meet Riley. Riley grew up with a phone in hand and a dozen group chats pinging at once. They imagine a future filled with creativity, maybe digital design or perhaps online activism, working with people who share their passion and values. Riley speaks the language of individuality, but quietly fears being cut off if they say the wrong thing. They crave connection, but live with constant pressure to perform, to stay visible and stay in step with the ever-changing expectations of the online world. Each of these fictional characters is trying to do what we all attempt daily, to find our true selves, to try and find an answer to the question, who am I? And it's an important question. It's one that humans have always asked in one form or another, and how we answer it shapes our lives. One psychologist put it this way, saying finding yourself is important because it is the key to living a fulfilling and authentic life. When you truly know yourself, you can make decisions that align with your values, passions, and purpose. So where can I find my true self? Or more technically, what is my identity? What is identity? Well, at its core, identity is your deep down sense of who you are. Not just your hobbies or your jobs or the roles you play, student, friend, parent, sibling, but what really sits at the centre. It's the answer to the question, who am I really? But identity also includes how you feel about who you are. Am I okay with this version of me? Do I like who I'm becoming? So you've got self-understanding and self-regard. And identity pulls those together. It's not just about knowledge, but about acceptance, about whether that self feels worthy, safe, and loved. Now, like Max, most of us live in a highly individualistic culture. That's the world we exist in. Freedom, independence, and self-expression are our top priorities, our highest values. The answer to who am I in this world is you are whoever you want to be. Just look inside, follow your hearts, be true to yourself. And we see this message in music, in movies, in motivational quotes. You know, Taylor Swift singing, I'm the only one of me, baby, that's the fun of me. Or The Greatest Showman declaring, I make no apologies, this is me. Take the movies, that's way too small there. There's a quote from Brave, you control your destiny, you don't need magic to do it. That's from the kids' movie Brave. Or the whole plot of Frozen, basically, is this message. Be who you want to be. You hear it in motivational speakers all the time. Oprah's always a good one for it. The biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams. You are whoever you want to be. So some of the markers of this individualistic identity, well, your path to worth, achieve personal goals and be authentic. That's the way you'll be worthy. And your biggest fear is being ordinary or failing to stand out. Which means the biggest pressure on you is to perform, to be unique, and to be successful. In this culture, even our relationships are shaped by utility. We choose who we connect with based on what they bring to us. We curate our lives to reflect our best selves, to show our uniqueness. And all that can be thrilling, but also deeply isolating. And the cost, which we see around us, can be anxiety, insecurity, and a deep fear that we won't measure up. Perhaps you've seen others struggling with those things, or you felt them yourself. The late Tim Keller, who I'm going to draw on a lot for this material, called this modern way of building identity fragile, self-centred, and exhausting. There's got to be a better way. Maybe we should go back to like it used to be, or maybe we should look to those countries that are less individualistic. Maybe we should have a more traditional view. Maybe we should be living like Leanne, the culture that Leanne grew up with, our first character that I introduced us to. In many traditional or collectivist cultures, identity is found not in personal choices, but in our roles, our relationships, and group expectations. In this culture, your path to worth is to fulfill your duties and to bring honour to your group. Your biggest fear then is bringing shame to your community. And your biggest pressure is to conform and preserve harmony. So in this culture, you're not deciding who you are, you're discovering what others expect of you. And the cost, potentially, is shame if you fall short, suppression if your desires don't align, and the loss of personal freedom. Now, maybe you've seen or experienced some of these pressures. Tim Keller again says, collectivist cultures can be restrictive and shame-based. Identity isn't something you choose, it's something imposed. Well, so far we have two models. One's exhausting and one's suppressing. Not a great start. Which brings us to Riley's world. This is a really important one. Riley lives in what I'm going to call the hybrid culture of today. And it's where the online world and the real world, the online world is the real world in this space. It's where the in-person world, the online world blur, and it speaks the language of individualism, that modern language, but it runs on group approval. It's a weird kind of space. You're expected to be unique, but only in a way that fits the algorithm. So some features of this. Your path to worth is to gain visibility and approval. So what makes you someone worthy? Your biggest fear is being cancelled or ignored. And your biggest pressure? To perform individuality that fits group norms. Think about that. This is a world of followers, of feeds, likes, and metrics where identity is curated but also vulnerable. One misstep or a wrong word and the crowd can turn. And relationships are weird in this space. They feel like they should be close, but they're strangely distant. It's connection without depth, exposure without safety. This is the world that has created an epidemic of loneliness, while at the same time making us more connected than ever. It's a weird mix. Visibility without intimacy. Constant pressure to be on without ever truly feeling known. So we go 3 approaches, all recognisable, all flawed. So what's the alternative? Well, I've got 2 bits of good news for you. The first bit of good news is I'm not going to say that the alternative is to just get religion, because that's not going to work either. Sorry to disappoint you. Because when we talk about religion, whether it's a traditional culture saying be who your family expects you to be, or a modern one that says be whoever you want, just impress us while you're at it, a religious message says, well, just be good enough and God will accept you. It's all the same message, different wrapping, same burden. You have to achieve your identity, you have to earn it, to prove it, to hold it together. But the other bit of good news, there is another way, a better way. A way of being where your identity isn't something you achieve, it's something you receive. Now let's build this from the ground up. We're going to start with the foundations. Here's how identity really works. So I need, you need, we all need someone we respect, someone we adore to the skies to be respecting and affirming us. That's what gives us a stable identity. A voice from outside ourselves saying, you are seen, you are known, you are loved. I need someone who I respect and adore to come and say, I affirm you, I love you, I accept you. That's the voice we're all longing to hear. I was thinking about this knowing that it's Mother's Day, and I thought, relationships with parents can be complicated. I get that. I was fortunate to have a great relationship with my mum, and there were plenty of times when I think my life, my self-worth would rise or fall on her approval, because she was an external voice that I loved and adored, I needed her to say, well done, that was good. But as great as Mum was, I couldn't and I shouldn't build my whole identity on her approval. We know that's not going to end well. She wasn't perfect. And of course, if you're saying, that's okay, I give approval to myself, well, you're fooling yourself there too, because you've just swapped audiences. Maybe it's not your parents anymore, or maybe it's your followers, your tribe, or you. It's still performance. It's still exhausting. So we need to build our identity on something different. And to understand a different kind of identity, we need to go back to the beginning. Now, a few weeks ago, Daniel tackled the question, hasn't science disproved God? And as part of that, he took us back to the Genesis account, the creation account. And there, I think, we find something beautiful, and I wanted to revisit that. I really like the work of Old Testament scholar John Walton. He suggests, and he goes into a lot of detail on this, but he suggests Genesis is not just about how the world was made, but about how God gave everything function and meaning. In that view, and it's worth reading in more detail, in that view, creation is about calling and purpose. God assigns roles, he names things, he calls them good. And I think that speaks to us because we don't earn our worth by performing, we receive it. Just like the light, the land, the sea, our purpose isn't something we invent, it's something we're given, and we're invited into a story where meaning isn't self-made but God-given. We're not the authors of our value, God is. And that changes everything. There's our foundation. Let me explain, build some things on top of that. That's great. God's given me my identity and my value. Fantastic. But let's be honest. We still carry stuff around that we don't know what to do with. I still feel imperfect, become very aware of my mistakes and failings at times. What do I do with that? One of my pet hates is the celebrity non-apology. When a celebrity's been caught doing something questionable and they're asked to speak about it and they'll explain it and they'll say things like, it was just the person I had to be at the time. Well, it was part of my journey. That's a great one. It's not really an apology or an acknowledgement. It's a justification. It's all very therapeutic, very tidy, but I don't think it actually helps. When we're told that there's no fixed right or wrong, that you define your own truth, your own journey, still deep down you carry the weight, that weight of, we don't use the words guilt or judgment anymore, but we still feel it. We still feel when we've messed up. We still feel stained, imperfect. We've lost the categories, but not the condition. We're free, supposedly, but we're still stuck. And so this is where the Christian story offers something else. It doesn't try and just sweep the mess under the rug or justify it. It names it, acknowledges it, and then offers grace. No striving, no pretending, a fresh start. Paul, one of the great Christian writers in the New Testament, writes in 2 Corinthians, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. We find our identity in God and we find a new identity. Now, this new identity is found not just as a concept to admire, but in a person that we can trust. It's not about trying harder to be good and to live up to that expectation. It's about placing our trust in a person, in the person of Jesus. Handing over the version of yourself you've been trying so hard to hold together and receiving a new identity, grounded not in your performance, but in his love. In Christ, we're fully known and fully loved, and that becomes the core of our self-understanding. God's verdict comes before our performance, not after it. And this leads to both a deep humility, because we're still aware of our failings, but also a bold confidence, because we know that we're accepted anyway. Our identity is achieved not through success or self-expression, but received as a gift. A grace-based identity rather than an earned one. That's why Paul says, I care very little if I'm judged by you or by any human court. It is the Lord who judges me. It's the freedom that we have. But it's kind of paradoxical. It flies in the face of conventional wisdom. Jesus once said, whoever loses their life for me will find it. I thought I was meant to look inside to find myself. But apparently I need to lose myself to find myself. That's the paradox of the Christian identity. You find your true self not through self-focus, but through self-forgetfulness. Not by looking inward, but by anchoring yourself in something, someone greater. True freedom, true self-discovery come through loving and serving God and others rather than obsessing over our own image or reputation. You become more yourself, not less, when your life is rooted in His. So here's the final piece. You can't really know who you are unless you know the God who made you. Echoing theologians throughout history, you were made to centre your life on God, and you will never understand yourself or be truly happy unless you do. We live in a world that says, find yourself by looking within. And we're always so aware of those pressures. And the message is so strong, it creeps in, even when we don't mean it to. We find ourselves getting caught up in the need to perform, to be liked. The world says find yourself by looking within, but the Christian story says find yourself by looking up and out. And when you do, you find not just a clearer view of yourself, but a much firmer foundation to stand on. Everybody's building their identity on something. Everyone's looking for someone to say you're seen, you're known, you're loved. God says yes to all three of those things. In Jesus, we are seen, we are known, and we are loved. Despite all of our failings, regardless of whether we perform or not. You are seen, you are known, and you are loved. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. Your old life is gone. A new life has begun. And that is where we can find our true identity.